The Dharma, incomparably profound and exquisite, is rarely met with even in hundreds of thousands of millions of kalpas. We now can see it, hear it, accept and hold it. May we realize the true mind of the Tathagata. Today is the 7th and last day of this February 2023 session here at Mountain Gate in northern New Mexico. And we've all had a lot of work accomplished during this session. But, of course, we want to keep it going. One of the most important things to recognize in Zen practice is that our perceptions can be misleading. And society is full of ideas about what is high, what is low, what is important, what is less important, what is rich, what is poor, and all manner of other judgments about things and people. But it is our practice in Zen to see through this, to see where we are caught in judgment, and to see increasingly clearly the truth of reality. To this end, I'd like to share with you some Sufi teaching stories. These are about Mulla Nasruddin Hoja, who you've heard of before in these shows. Nasruddin Hoja is a revered figure in many, many countries, in Central Asia, in South Asia, even in China, and all the way into the Balkans, and further up into Romania. And he's famous. It's uncertain whether he actually existed or not, and some of the stories attributed to him also appeared under other guises. But supposedly he lived in the 13th century. In Turkey, there is actually a supposed grave for him, and he's highly revered in Turkey. And in fact, there are many, many, many statues of him throughout the country, riding a donkey backwards. Oh, yeah. It's a point we should all consider. In fact, there is one story about him going into another country with riding a donkey with 2 pallets of hay that the donkey was carrying, and going back a few days later without the hay, but with the donkey, and of course riding backwards on the donkey to make a point. But this was going on, and finally one of the guards at the border said, I think you're up to no good. What's going on here? You keep coming and going. And Nasruddin said, I'm a smuggler. And the guard said, really? I don't see anything that you're smuggling. And apparently, eventually, Nasruddin moved to Egypt, away from the country he'd been, moving the donkeys back and forth. And somehow the same guard ended up there, but of course in a different capacity. And so there was no negative impact in his asking the question. You said you're a smuggler. What were you smuggling? I couldn't figure out what you were smuggling. And Nasruddin said, donkeys. There are many stories, and one of them is quite wonderful. There is a story about word going out that a wealthy emir was holding a feast that everyone in the whole countryside was welcome to. And so Nasruddin hied himself over to this place of the feast, and I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And the person at the door looked him up and down. He was in a ragged cloak, kind of patchwork clothes, and seated him far, far away from the head table. And So Nasruddin sat there for a while, and then he realized it was going to be quite a long time before the waiters ever got to his end of the table or end of the hall. And so he left, went home, donned himself in an ermine robe and a very fancy turban. He went back, and the people at the door bowed and escorted him to a seat very close to the emir. And he was served almost immediately with some very delicious food. At which point he started taking the food and sort of putting it on his robe and on his hat. And this puzzled people. And they said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, it was the robe and the hat that got me here, so don't they deserve some of the feast?" These are very pertinent commentaries on human sensibilities, assumptions, what we get caught in. And now I'm going to try to find some more stories here that I can share with you. This is called Circumstances Alter Cases. The rain was pelting down. Aga Akil, the most sanctimonious man in town, was running for shelter. "How dare you flee from God's bounty?" thundered Nasruddin at him. "The liquid from heaven. As a devout man, you should know that rain is a sheer blessing for all creatures." The Aga was anxious to maintain his reputation. "I'd not thought of it that way," he muttered, and slackening his pace, he arrived home soaked through. Of course, he caught a chill. Soon afterward, as he sat wrapped in blankets at his window, he spied Nasruddin pelting through the rain and challenged him. "Why are you running away from divine blessings, Nasruddin? How dare you spurn the blessing which it contains?" "Ah," said Nasruddin, "you don't seem to realize that I do not want to defile it with my feet." And adventures in the desert. When I was in the desert," said Nasruddin one day, "I caused an entire tribe of horrible and bloodthirsty Bedouins to run." "How did you do it?" "Easy. I just ran, and they ran after me." The unsuspected element. Two men were quarreling outside Nasruddin's window at dead of night. Nasruddin got up, wrapped his only blanket around him, and ran out to try to stop the noise. When he tried to reason with the drunks, one snatched his blanket and both ran away. "What were they arguing about?" asked his wife when he went in. "It must have been the blanket." When they got at that, the fight broke up. Nasruddin's wife ran to his room when she heard a tremendous thump. "Nothing to worry about," said the mullah. "It was only my cloak which fell to the ground." "What? And made a noise like that?" "Yes, I was inside it at the time." Do not disturb the camels. Nasruddin was wandering in a graveyard. He stumbled and fell on an old grave, beginning to visualize how it would feel if he were dead. He heard a noise. It flashed into his mind that the angel of reckoning was coming for him, though it was only a camel caravan passing by. The mullah jumped up and fell over a wall, stampeding several camels. The camels beat him with sticks. No, the camel cameliers beat him with several sticks. He ran home in a distressed state. His wife asked him what the matter was and why he was late. "I've been dead," said the mullah. Interested in spite of herself, she asked what it was like. "Not bad at all, unless you disturb the camels. Then they beat you." And a moment in time, where is fate? Nasruddin was asked by a scholar, what is fate? An endless succession of intertwined events, each influencing the other. That's hardly a satisfactory answer. I believe in cause and effect. Very well, said the mullah. Look at that. He pointed to a procession passing in the street. The man is being taken to be hanged. Is that because someone gave him a silver piece and enabled him to buy the knife with which he committed the murder? Or because someone saw him do it because nobody stopped him? Or because nobody stopped him? And this one, how Nasruddin spoke up. Nasruddin said, one day a marvelous horse was brought before the prince at whose court I sat. Nobody could ride it because it was far too mettlesome a steed. Suddenly, in the heat of my pride and chivalry, I cried out, none of you dare to ride this splendid horse. None of you. None of you can stay on his back. And I sprang forward. Someone asked, what happened? I couldn't ride it either, said the mullah. So these are stories that are amusing, but they have a point. And it sort of harkens back to our Zen practice, where we're tuning in and trying to discern something beyond the words, not necessarily of these particular stories, but the words of our own mouth, the words of society, the words of television, the words of you name it. And our political scene is a major example of the complexity of this sort of thing. Various people have various versions of what reality should look like, or what reality seemingly is. And that's the case for each one of us. And it is our work in our Zen practice to awaken to the profound truth that is not colored by any of this. And to work at letting go where we're caught in coloration, and to become free. Because as we become free, we understand clearly, without being told, without having words, without needing laws or even ideas to direct it, exactly what is most effective and the most positive, compassionate, wise way to do. And the practice works. If we perceive what's going on and question it. What is the truth? This face before my parents were born, how can I have a face that was there before my parents were born and it's my face? Well, who is my, for one thing? And where is that face? And how do I find it? Well, we have a way to find it. We begin with the extended out breath, breathing out long and deep and letting go all other stuff. letting go our thoughts, letting them fly around in the background, that's fine. We don't have to engage in them. And that's important. And aside to this is that we don't have to stop them. They will die on the vine if they're not paid attention. And if they start getting really uppity, then as we extend our out-breath more fully, more deeply, more completely focused on that experience in our body, they will naturally fall away. It may take 4, 5, 6 extended breaths with committed concentration, and then it won't be a problem anymore. Until, of course, the next time they come bounding in again, and they will, in particular, when we are, this is a funny thing to say, but it's actually true, longing for distraction. Zen practice is actually a somewhat frightening thing to undertake, because it is going to open us to everywhere we're caught. And we have a deep investment in our appearance, that self-image, that false front, that led Nasruddin Hoja to be seated at the bottom of the table, way in the back corner, where there might not even be enough food to feed him, when he was dressed in a ragged cloak, and yet when he returned dressed elegantly, the reception was very different. We want to be the one in the elegant clothes. We want to be the one who is successful. But we may not believe in that, actually. We may not believe that we're successful because we've been told in many different ways, both verbally and in demonstrations, that something's wrong with us. We're not good enough. And so we try to hide that, because somewhere we half believe it. And we put on this false face. And as we do our practice, that false face begins to become revealed and subtly questioned. And that becomes a scary place, because if we're not that false face, are we going to be revealed for the idiot or the stupid one, or the negative one, or the unworthy one, or the too fat, or the too thin, or too tall, or too skinny, or incapable one that we somewhere are afraid we really are, because we've been told that? And yet, when we're willing to walk into that, and there's going to be pushback from within ourselves, because there is an investment in that facade. It's there for a reason. And yet, when we walk naked into the world without needing to have that shield, it's not going to be like the emperor's new clothes. It's going to be fully clothed in our innate true nature, without the extra stuff clinging to us. And then we will be able to respond to circumstance without hindrance. We will be able to live fully from that original face without interruption, without shoulds and oughts, naturally flowing, in each moment responding exactly as the moment is most best responded to. And that may not be what we would expect. There's another Nasruddin Hoja story in which he is asked to give a talk at the he was asked to give a talk, and so he went up to the front and he said, does anyone know? Do you know what I'm going to talk about? And they all said no. He said, well then, there's no point in trying to say anything to you people because you wouldn't be able to understand it anyway. So they're a bit taken aback by this, and they decide, because they had always assumed that he was a very fine and deep philosopher. So they go back to him and they say, would you come again and give us a talk? So the next time he came, and he said, do you all know what I'm going to talk about? And they were prepared. So they said, yes. And so his response was, well, then I don't need to give the talk, do I? And so nonplussed, they tried a third time. And this time, half of the group said no. The other half of the group said yes. And so the mullah said, well then, those of you who know what I was going to talk about, speak with the ones who don't know and let them know. And then he left. So we may find ourselves, as we let go more and more, responding in ways that surprise us. When this first started happening to me, because before that, I would say things and I would think, that's not how I feel. That's not what I believe. But I was so impelled by needing to be accepted by the group I was within, whatever group it was. It didn't matter. I was in lots of different groups at lots of different times in my life because of where I was in time and space. And but then as I began to be more clear and more open and more let go and not needing so much to be accepted, I would just simply respond. And then I'd think, I said that? And I would realize it was exactly right. And gradually my confidence was gained, and I don't have that problem anymore. I will speak. So this is what we can open to in our practice. It allows us, as we begin to let go the Velcro that keeps us caught in challenging interactions, dysfunctional interactions with life, with people, with things, we become more free, and we're able to reveal more completely this incredible beingness that we really are, every single one of us, no matter what we think about ourselves. This is what Zen practice can bring forth for us. It can uncover our innate perfection and allow us, through our own efforts, to flow with life instead of trying to make life happen the way we think it ought to. We're born to be able to do this. And our practice will bring us there if we continue with dedication, willingness to walk through whatever it is that is stopping us, and faith that we can reach that place of true liberation that is available to each one of us if we do the work. Understanding that it's going to take a while. This is not a fast track. Anyone who promises a fast track doesn't know what they're talking about. They're just replacing one image for another. To be truly free, we have to do the work of letting go what keeps us prisoner. And that is our own conditioning, our own ideas, our own assumptions. It's happened to millions of people, this opening into this freedom to one degree or another. For many, it's happened to a great degree. So that whatever life brings us, we can easily and harmoniously respond, even if it's a painful situation. On this 7th day of Sesshin, take that to heart. Recognize that you're well on your way. Nobody here has not been to Sesshin before. So every succeeding Sesshin takes one deeper, allows more letting go. I hope we see you many more times. And I wish each one of you to reach that ultimate freedom of opening to that true face, that true person of no rank that you really are. I thank you for listening. We'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.